Oh, pay attention. This is important. Don't scroll past. What are you doing Sunday? Sunday, Beatles fans, attention, attention. Quickly, there's going to be a Beatles show celebrating the life of John Lennon, and these shows are a three-ring circus of awesomeness, and they're put on by my three guests here, John, Chachi, and Stephanie. Chachi is and John are the hosts. Stephanie's the executive producer. Lots of prizes and deep appreciation for the magic of the Beatles each time, and this time in particular, John Lennon. It's Sunday, which is October. Sunday is what? October what? 6. Okay, it's at City Winery in Boston. It's a feel-good event. Folks love it. Folks go over and over, myself included. You're looking for something different. This parking is free that day, right, on Sunday? Is that true? Okay.
And it is.
The meters, yes.
3 meter parking.
At the meters, right. It's centrally located. Nice place, City Winery, and a lot of fun.
And the weather's going to be great on Sunday.
And the weather's going to be great as we approach Halloween. Now, each show is different, and now we're going to talk about how this show is going to be different. And we'll start with Chachi, one of the MCs. Let me sort of introduce a little more about what each person does. Chachi, long time friend. Stephanie, actually, long time friend. And John, relatively new friend. Chachi goes way back with me, working in the radio at a station called WBCN, and we've stayed in connection. He's always been a Beatles super fan, very involved, career-wise, hobby-wise, fanatic-wise, and has never stopped. There's no one that cares more, knows more, loves the Beatles more than Chachi. And right behind him, Stephanie and John both love the Beatles too. And they decided, why don't we do a show so we can share our love for the Beatles with fellow Beatles people and even turn more other folks like me onto the Beatles. That's right, me. Even though I was a DJ and played the Beatles all the time, I was like, yeah, I get it. They were good. they were important. But now I appreciate them more and more. And I think that you will too. And this show is October 6th, noontime, right? As usual, noontime, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. Chachi, you start and tell us what we can expect some of today. Oh, by the way, super prizes, I understand. Stephanie's telling me about super prizes, extra special prizes, which is good. So, Chachi, do the thing that you do.
We have some great prizes, yes. But first, John Lennon was a very, very special guy. If there was no John Lennon, there'd be no Beatles. His high school teacher wrote that he would never amount to anything. And look at him now, 84 years he would have been this year if he was still with us. And he's still in our hearts and minds. He created the Beatles. He was the trailblazer. We're celebrating his life, his music, his career on Sunday at City Winery. And it's going to be very, very special. We have special guests. Ivor Davis is a British journalist we've been friends with for a long time. He traveled with the Beatles on the 64 American tour. So he passed through Boston with the Beatles. Side note, he was the first reporter at the Manson murders. He was there when RFK was assassinated. So he has a lot of history behind him. He'll be joining us live from Los Angeles, telling us intimate stories of John while they are on tour together, playing Monopoly together in their hotel rooms. So that will be fantastic. We have special prizes. We have a Lost Weekend DVD, the story of May Pang and John Lennon. It's autographed by May Pang. We have tickets to Mickey Dolenz. It was 50 years ago today with Christopher Cross, Maxie Priest, Joey Molland at the Cabot Theater on October 30th. We have tickets to Harrafest November 2nd down at White's of Westport. We have all of the albums given to us by Bob Walsh at Cheap Thrills Music in Dedham. He gives us at least 7 original Beatles or John Lennon vinyl albums. We'll be giving those away. There's a brunch menu, and there's John and his magic. It's going to be very special. There's videos and all that. It's going to be great.
Now we get to John and his magic. How the heck does magic get insinuated into this larger magic? So, John, explain it.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been doing magic for almost 2 decades now, and I've always been a fan of the Beatles. So I merged my passions together, and you learn about the Beatles through the magic. So sometimes I'll talk about, maybe if I have someone think of a Beatles song, their favorite Beatles song, And then I try to read their mind to figure out what song they're thinking of. But as I'm doing it, I'm telling the history of the song. So you learn about the history of the song through the magic. Or sometimes we'll have big jumbo playing cards. We pass those around. People shuffle them up. And then when we look at whatever the values we have, it equals something that has to do with the Beatles, the date, something like that. So you're learning about the Beatles in a really engaging way. That's our goal when we produce the show. Now, of course, we want to produce a show, people having fun, people, it's a very entertaining type of show. But at the end of the day, we love to share our passion with the Beatles. We love to share underground stories of the Beatles, and we try to do that in really unique ways. So whether that's magic, whether we have some cool footage and interviews of the Beatles, some really rare footage of them. So it's really cool. It's a really cool experience.
John talks about magic, and it's not a trick. John can actually read your mind. Isn't that right? That's correct,
true.
right?
I have no comment.
I've seen it. There's no way that there's any sort of trick involved. John can read your mind.
He does. He does. And there's a live music part of our show.
Right.
Yep.
And we're very excited. This gentleman it's his return to our show. He's so good. People love him so much. Longtime Boston musician Corin Ashley will be performing his favorite John Lennon / Beatles songs. And he's a joy. We love him. Super talent. We love Corin Ashley.
So on this one big show on one nice stage at the City Winery, while you're enjoying the food and beverages at the City Winery, and it's good food and good beverages, adult or otherwise, all these things are going to be going on the stage. I'm going to come whipping out and introduce Chachi and John, and they launch into whatever comes first, whatever aspect of it, talking about probably a little bit about John Lennon, but there will also be rare video clips of John. There will be prizes, really great prizes, especially great prizes this week, and there will be that live thing from, where's that coming from?
Ivor Davis will be live from Los Angeles.
Live from LA.
You're going to love Ivor. He is such a character, and he remembers everything about being on tour with the Beatles. So he's going to share a lot of great stories.
And some of the prizes that were just mentioned, the tickets included, are given away through trivia questions, and others just drawings. So you don't even need to be a super Beatles expert to win. You could just be like me and get lucky. Now, what did John bring to the Beatles? You said there wouldn't be a Beatles without John. Okay. What did he bring? What was his special ingredient?
He was the nucleus of it all. If you remember, Paul came to John, then George came to John. John was kind of a ringleader as he was growing up. He had his group of young friends, preteen and teenage years. It was all revolving around John. He was outlandish. He was a teddy boy. He was a tough guy. He was a nice guy, but he had this innate kind of desire to play music, to entertain, to write at a young age. Even John, we show this on the screens. At a very young age, he is creating his own little newspaper and a lot of art and drawings and strange word pairings. And so he was a young talent from before 10 years old. His mother taught him how to play guitar on a banjo. And he was so good at it. And so he started it all. And it was John, along with Stu Sutcliffe, who came up with the name Beatles. And the other three would always say John is the leader of the group.
Really? Because
Oh, yeah.
I would have thought, and many others would think, that it was Paul, but it really was John. John was the nucleus.
They had a thing where all four had to decide on most things. But if there was something that needed to be decided, whatever John said goes. And they all deferred to John ultimately.
He was kind of intellectual, wasn't he? He was not just musically talented. He is a thinker, a political thinker, and he was that way all through his life.
He certainly was, a peacenik, an activist, looking for the good out of life and getting people to love one another. So, yeah, he was a very, very special guy.
Didn't suffer fools gladly, and he had a quick wit and a sharp tongue. If you didn't cut the mustache, you would be like, boom.
So what was the documentary recently released? Like a couple of years ago? Get Back, was it?
Well, yes, the Beatles documentary, Get Back, it's like 7-8 hours of really great unreleased footage. Yes.
It seemed like in that, John was a ball buster, like just gratuitously breaking people's balls, making fun, acting weird, being counterproductive in some ways, like just being weird and slowing stuff down and running his mouth when he didn't need to. And maybe that was part of the creative process, or maybe it was counterproductive. What do you think?
Or maybe it's because he could.
Yeah, maybe a lot of times maybe he was just bored. He was bored with what was going on, bored with sitting around in the studio. That's what it felt like.
At that point, it started in '68 where John was, separated from Cynthia. He had met Yoko. There was more to life than being with the other three. What they went through from the early '60s up until they broke up, they were four guys living together literally everywhere. They traveled everywhere. They toured everywhere. It wasn't like after they were on tour, off the tour, they went their separate ways and got away from each other. They hung out together. They were brothers. They loved each other. But at some point, if you look at what we have books here that talk about every day from 62 to 70, what they did every day. And it was nonstop. They were like a dog. It was like dog years for the Beatles. 1 year for them would be 7 years for any other band.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question for John. John, if John were alive today, say it was Paul that passed away and John were alive today, would you be too nervous to do your magic in front of John? Would you be able to do it? Would you freak out?
That's a very good question. I think it is interesting because each of their personalities were so different. So John was a little bit more, I feel like John would want to figure out the trick. I feel like that's what his mindset would be. He would be like, do it again. I want to try to figure this out. And I think Ringo would be more laid back from my perspective. I think he would enjoy the moment, things like that. So if I was going to perform a trick to John Lennon, I would have to make sure it's a really good one.
Would you do it? I mean, if you had the chance, would you do it? Because the personal potential for you would be disastrous, right? That'd be like me, like playing a song for David Bowie and having him go, yeah, whatever. Yeah. I'd be so scared.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. I think I would love to get his perspective as well. I feel like I know Paul enjoys magic. I think he knows a few tricks based off of my research I've done about him. But I feel like John, again, we talked about this a moment ago. John had a very artistic type of mind. It was very he would doodle different pictures and had his own little cartoon and newspaper when he was 12 years old. So he has a very creative mindset. So it'd be interesting to do a trick to him and then see what his thoughts would be about it. I feel like he would want to know how to do it so then he could perform it to his friends and family as well. So.
Those shirts you guys have on are really cool. Can you get those at the gig? Are they on sale?
Yes, you can. Yes, there are shirts. We sell these at our show at Come Together at City Winery on Sunday. So yeah, grab a shirt.
Okay, good. Now you mentioned May Pang. A lot of people don't know who May Pang is. Everybody thinks of Yoko. Some people know about Cynthia, then Yoko, and then May Pang. And remind folks who May Pang is and your relationship with May Pang.
Well, I've known May for probably 25, 30 years. Certainly her story is very well known. Started as a worker at Alan Klein's office and then became John and Yoko's assistant. They took her everywhere and she produced a lot of things for them, took care of business, errands. And at some point, John and Yoko were going through a rocky part of their relationship. And so Yoko asked May to take John to Los Angeles, take care of him. And they were going to separate for a while. And it turned into an 18-month relationship with John, one that I think people were expecting that John and May would get married. But then John reunited with Yoko. And May went her separate ways, and they just put out a documentary about a year ago, The Lost Weekend, a love story, and it's probably the most creative point of John's solo career, that 18 months, because May, wanted him to get out there, reunite with family, hang out with friends. Yes, you should work with Paul again. They were very close to writing again. And she was all about that. But then
And he was in LA and hanging out with everyone.
With he was hanging around with Bowie in L.A. and he was on Young Americans album at that time.
Exactly.
That is correct. He was partying with Keith Moon, Ringo Starr, Harry Nilsson. I mean, they were heavy partiers, drinking, all of it.
So they were on the rocks. It sounds like May Pang said, "Oh, it looks like John's gonna go off, have a bunch of affairs, have sex with a bunch of people," and she wanted to keep some control over it. Just said, "Hey, May Pang, I want you to be the one." And so at least I have some clue. You're a known quantity. I have some control over you. And
Right.
it seemed like a smart thing. What is it that brought John back to Yoko?
Yoko.
She said, all right, enough. Come back. Is that it?
Yeah.
That was pretty much it. John, he liked powerful women. He needed that in his life. And Yoko was that woman. He called her mother. And he always needed a powerful woman in his life. Certainly his mother wasn't in his life, but his Aunt Mimi, who was very a powerful, very big authority in their house. So that's what John needed. And Yoko picked up the phone, and you're right. She picked May, and May was taken aback. Like, no, I can't. He's my boss. Well, how can I go with him here? You guys are together. And Yoko insisted. May did.
Sounds like Yoko needs a little HR training.
Yeah. So
She needs to see the video.
And May was very, very sad because I believe they would have got married. I believe there's a good chance that John would still be with us today. But
your boss asked you to take her husband out to LA and get him out of your hair. You do all right.
Yeah.
No.
Seemed like a good, cool deal for May Pang. She was just kind of a kid like any of us getting involved, like you got involved with the radio station. She said, I want to be involved in the record business.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, bloop,
she just walked in. She lived in New York and just walked into the office, applied for the job, and got it.
But she was scared. Like, she was definitely scared being out there in LA when it was all wild and free, and like what she was up against with Yoko and managing all that. She was kind of the only straight one.
That's right. She was not drinking. She was not doing drugs, but everyone around them were. And so May took a lot of fantastic photographs. She has been on our Come Together show, and we appreciate that. We brought it to City Winery a year and a half ago for her photo art show, and that's where it began. And she's still on tour today.
So she didn't drink or take drugs. She didn't drink?
No.
Maybe that might have been partly why Yoko chose her.
Exactly. She was level-headed, and she was very young. I mean, she might not have been like 20, but anyway, she got her heart broken in the end. Like, she paid for like all of that, and she really didn't ask for it to begin with. So
yeah,
but
the documentary is great.
I'm sorry, John, but she went on to marry David Bowie's producer, right, Tony Visconti?
Yeah.
You know what? You reminded me of that. I forgot that.
Yep.
Okay, John, final thing. John, give us an idea. It's a little fuzzy for someone who may not have come. What sort of magic you do? Give a feeling of what it's like up there when you're doing your thing.
Yeah, so I do different types of magic for people during the show. I know different types of people like different types of magic. So usually there's a mind reading element to it. So whether I'm reading someone's mind, if they're thinking of a Beatles song, they're thinking something that has to do with the Beatles or memory that they have, I try to tap into their mind. I also like to do tricks where the whole audience is involved as well. So whether someone, I have everyone think of something and I ask a lot of different people different questions. I also like to make it really interactive as well. So we use really fun props. So I have these big jumbo playing cards that I hand out to people. We have big jumbo dice. Sometimes I'll use a dartboard, and whatever number they land on, we use that number to go to something else. So it is. We try to make it really interactive. That's kind of our goal. And again, we also produce a show in a way where if you know nothing about the Beatles, you'll have a good time. If you know everything about the Beatles, you have a good time as well. So different types of magic, different types of audience interactions as well. And again, we try to make it a good time for everyone.
So
We're
John's
always surprised with what he does. We sit there and go, "Oh my god,
yeah.
he just don't."
I used to try to figure out, how he did it, and now I've given up. I know that it's just magic, like physical prop stuff. All right, maybe I could try to figure out, but the mind reading stuff, I've given up on trying to figure that out.
And I try to do different types of trips throughout the show. So like I know Bradley, you like the mind reading stuff, right? So I try to do an element of that. Whereas some people, they like, when we're passed around the big props and I'm running around collecting stuff. So we try to make the show a little bit of everything for everyone, which is really fun when I produce the show and put the
I don't know if you'll do this for the Beatles folks, but someday, folks, if you ever run into John and he's got a pack of cards, ask him, come on, blow my mind with those cards, and he can do it. John's magic is so substantial. The whole show could be magic, but it's just one part of a huge. It's a 3-ring circus on one stage, and it all involves the love for the Beatles and each other in that room. When you come there, you'll realize, wow, these people, the common denominator, John being the Beatles, is so strong that there's a connection between the folks. And when you go, you'll start to feel that connection, and you'll probably come back.
Yeah,
so again,
and you know what, Bradley? There's screens everywhere, so no matter where you're sitting, it's a great place to be. And there's a great menu with some fantastic brunch items and those nice cocktails and wine. And so you can order and drink and eat while the show's happening. It's very laid back. It's peace and love the whole time. It's a lot of fun. Doors at 11, show at noon.
Yep. So Sunday, October 6th, doors at 11, show at noon. All 4 of us will be there. And, of course, you'll be there, too. Thanks, you guys. See you there. Looking forward to it.
Can't wait, Bradley.
Thanks, Bye. Bradley. Don't leave after we're not live anymore.